Hello, dear listener. I have something truly special to share. It's an exclusive invitation to join me in Mexico for an intimate and luxurious 3-day retreat along the beautiful Pacific coast of Zihuatanejo, taking place the weekend of the spring equinox, March 18th through the 20th. There's also an optional day to stay through the 21st for some special ceremonies that are happening in the area for the equinox. But the retreat itself is the 18th through the 20th, really an opportunity not to be missed. And I'm offering one lucky listener a discounted ticket on this weekend that I've just been loving into being actually for several years now as COVID and, everything. But when we conceived of building this place, our home down here, it's really what we envisioned, bringing people down here for retreats, for trainings, because we felt and we knew that this space was special. And as people keep coming down and we keep getting the feedback, how magical it is, we want to share it in a really intentional way. Be working with the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water, the metaphors of the season. We'll set sight on a new vision for our mothering journey and creating a deeper connection to self and Mother Nature. So to win a discounted ticket, rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts. Screenshot it and DM it to me on Instagram at Dr. Gertrude Lyons. And remember, the most important thing to mother is yourself. Give yourself permission to take a retreat this year. And besides, who said mothers can't go on a spring break? I'll see you there.
Hello, and welcome to Rewrite the Mother Code. I'm Dr. Gertrude Lyons, a professional life coach, exploring, demystifying, and democratizing the maternal power that lives in all women. The experience of mothering may not necessarily mean what you think it means. I believe that mothering is a vehicle for transformation, whether or not we have children. And together, we can start a new conversation around modern motherhood. On this show, we will redefine what it means to mother and untap the powerful feminine within you. Are you ready to rewrite the mother code? This is a Soulfire production. Hi, and welcome to episode 18 of the Rewrite the Mother Code podcast. Today's episode is another behind the scenes, just like I've been doing, and I'm so excited about episodes that I've done where I bring my coaching into my podcast, and I've done a couple live coaching, and that's going to become a regular feature of this podcast. I also want to kind of share, bring in, do a little bit of the behind the scenes look of my Rewrite the Mother Code Mastermind and really illuminate, maybe even kind of think about it. Like I want this episode to be as if you and I were having a conversation about what is this mastermind and why would I even consider it? And not from I'm not going to lie. Like I'd love so many probably of anyone who's tuning into this podcast. I would love to have you part of this mastermind. It's something that has emerged for me in this past year that now means so much to me. And I feel like I've found a format that in a short period of time, I can really give women the essence, not just the like thoughts behind it. And I want to shift thinking and raise women's awarenesses around the transformational opportunity in mothering. But more than that, I want them to practice it. And what doing this in a mastermind format has allowed for, because prior to this, I would do it as a day or day and a half intensive. And that's great because you get to kind of sit with the material and just really steepen it over just a condensed period of time. But in an 8-week mastermind, we have the luxury of putting out some of the theory, the message, and we have 2 hours together every week. Well, actually over 8 weeks, 6 of those weeks we meet as a group. And in those 2 hours, I pack in lots of material and lots of ways for us to consider this topic. And I'm going to go into some more detail about this, but I don't just want us, and I don't want myself, I don't want women to just ponder and think about. And it's great to have kind of awakenings and awarenesses, but if we don't put them into action, if we don't have assignments, which is a big part, this whole curriculum has come from, years and years of research with Doctors Bob and Judith Wright about how people best, absorb and then make changes, make actual changes in our lives, because that doesn't just happen from a new awareness or a good idea. So I've kind of digressed here a little bit, and that may happen. I get talking and I get excited about an aspect of what I'm talking about. So it may be a curvy road, but the path we want to go down today is, I would love by the end of this episode that you feel a sense like, oh, I've just had like a mini taste of it, or, oh, I've seen what it could be like for me, or, other women I know, to embark on, and invest in themselves in a journey like this. Okay. So let's start from the beginning. I love giving a little bit of a historical perspective. Cause for me, the Mother Code Mastermind it falls into the category of, for myself, that we're all mothers, right? And I've been mothering the Rewrite the Mother Code podcast as literally what feels like one of my children. The conceiving, the creating, and the giving birth of this concept. Mainly, that aspect of it was through the journey of my doctoral studies and my dissertation, but the creating and I'd say more the conception of it happened through the years of my own mothering. And something that I do throughout the mastermind is share my stories and share, my journey, not because I expect it to be the same as other women's, but kind of as a starting point, as a point of focus to think about, where can you relate? Where do I relate to her story? And if I'm not relating to it, what does it evoke for me? Right. So for example, when I think about and share about getting to this point where I decided to go back to school and embark on something as significant as a doctorate, it was because I had my own kind of reawakening or awareness toward the end of mothering my children at home. My daughters one was in college, one was still in high school. And while I could, kind of sit back and think about, I don't know, fairly a job well done. They were looking like, looking like strong, independent women. I could point to positives. My husband and I partnered and parented very well. But it was at that time, and I share that I was on a pilgrimage in Nepal, and we were visiting with a shaman, a woman, just this beautiful, beautiful being, this spirit. And in the process of talking with her and being with her in the atmosphere of mothering, I mean, she was really talking about various aspects of mothering. I had this, just huge, profound awareness that while I loved a lot of the ways I parented my children, I had really sidestepped my opportunity in the transformational opportunity in mothering. I could pinpoint, and I think I even wormholed back to a point when my daughters were real young, that this campaign I had been on for my husband and I and our family to really bring consciousness and awareness. But when you do that, it rocks the boat. It can be a very scary endeavor from the standpoint of security in the known, right? So if my values are going to be in what's known for me, then I'm going to cling to and want to hold on to what I know and how things are. And, that really came up big for me when my daughters were younger, were real little. And I was in the throes of massive amounts of insecurity as a mother. And I think one of the ways I found security was to ratchet things back on the personal development level, transformational level, and particularly not rock the boat with my husband, because now I had these two kids. I wanted to keep us together. Not that we were having any issues or there was anything really to worry about, but I wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be. And even though we had already weathered a number of storms and were growing as a couple, it just felt too scary, too scary to go into, whole new arenas of what I didn't know what it could stir up. What if I unleashed parts of myself that he didn't like? It had been okay till then, but I didn't know, and I'm later to find out that a lot of this fear was born out of my upbringing and a lot of unknowns and fears I sat with around my father and the type of man that he was. But I didn't know that at the time. All I knew is, let's pull back the reins, and I'll still learn things about conscious parenting. I'm director of our parenting program and certainly a huge advocate for this, but now I'm an advocate for it for other women, right? And I both watched, coached, supported, led a program where I got to watch women bravely step into what it meant to put themselves fully into and continuously into this transformational opportunity. I'm going to share some examples around that, but I'm sharing this story, again. So, is there anything someone can relate to around feeling like you were on a trajectory, but then, you kind of hit a wall and you realize like, no, I've been okay so far, rocking the boat, but I think I'll just kind of quit here and follow a paradigm that I'm comfortable with, which is, my husband will have the important job. I'll raise the kids. Now, I did work through, other than maybe about the first 2.5 years of my second daughter's life, but it wasn't so much that who was working as how we valued it and how I valued it. So we were in a very traditional situation that way. Yes, I wanted us to, kind of maintain some of our conscious practices, and we'd go on pilgrimages every year and, still taking part in many things at the right foundation, but not pushing into new and unknown territory. So you can maybe relate to that. What we do in the mastermind is, everything's under the umbrella of our mothering. And now I'll come fast forward back to the point where I have this, I'm like struck with this realization that I had made this choice. And boy, I can picture that scene and, having that realization in this woman's presence and getting a blessing from her, and then just really kind of falling to my knees and sobbing. And the tears just kept coming and coming, and really mourning a lost opportunity. I have at points, of course, kind of beat myself up and felt, a little bit guilty about it, but mostly it was just, an awareness that I wouldn't have that time back, and allowing myself to feel the depth of the pain of that was also another really important part of the journey. And all these are, this is the process of my conception of rewriting the mother code. So I'm kind of parallel this journey, right? So always like looking back is something we do in the mastermind, is really kind of find some of those pain points in our mothering. This was a big one for me. But then when women come forth and share those, what I keep finding is whether it's talks or intensives, but particularly in the mastermind, always women are so relieved, to talk about aspects of their mothering journey that, maybe they've talked about it with a therapist or, here or there, but to be in an open forum intimately with other women, to allow these pain points to surface, to allow our underbelly to show, but for a purpose, for a reason, right? For us we know that it's blocking us in some way. And even so, just the pure experience of a woman in her pain. We're always conceiving, creating, and giving birth. And that every time we allow depths of our pain, it's the pain of a birth of ourself, which I want to make sure and, not wait too long to talk about this mothering, expanding this mothering paradigm around us all being mothers. I'm mothering now. A lot of stories that I share about, the mothering of my children. But then when it came to mothering the dissertation, it was really a time I decided not right away, this still was a bit of a process to really put myself fully into the transformational opportunity of it in this regard, but how important it was going to be to mother myself. Anytime I would hit some of these depths of pain of looking back, I really started to hold them as one of the most important ways I could and would mother myself through this. And that was, one of the biggest gifts I got from, my journey in my mothering, and rewriting my mother code through my dissertation journey. So now fast forward, now that I just gave you a taste of one aspect of it, sharing my journey, which allows and brings forth, women to share theirs. And no matter where we are, and that's what's so beautiful, is no matter where a woman is on her mothering journey, whether she's considering, she knows she wants to have children, but she's not in a place, she's not in a relationship, maybe, she's at an age where she's starting to get concerned that, gosh, if I don't get in a relationship, but I know I really want to have a child, what's that going to be like for me? And some of the fears and pains that come with that. Women who have decided they don't want to have children, but they really want to take part in and see what is this concept of mothering in their lives without children. Hi, I'm so excited to share with you my 2024 Spring Equinox Self-Mothering Retreat that's happening this March 2024. And I would love for you not only to consider it, but to attend. But in considering it, hey, just knowing that you would be leaving cold weather, if that's the space that you're in, and coming down to just magnificently beautiful, warm, nourishing place of Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Zihuatanejo meaning land of the goddess women, and coming to really take time for yourself. Okay. And that I am learning more and more isn't just a nice thing to do or something extravagant or something selfish. It's essential. And I really want you to take it seriously to consider, just think about what would it take for me to go. It's a 5.5-day retreat, getting from where you are, getting there, landing there, and then being in a space that is all about you. It's all about nourishing you. It's all about tuning into you, using everything around us, the nature, the food, the beautiful people, the rituals, ceremonies. I bring it, we really bring it. And we go deeper and deeper as the days go on, and we release, we let go, we bring in what is nourishing, what is empowering, what is that space of just really divine feminine energy. And we do it in the community of women. It's not for everyone. I will be honest, if that idea of leaving and not making it work, or it's just too hard, not for you. If the idea of, spending that amount of time inwardly focused and going to that level of self-awareness doesn't sound like something you're willing to do or put the time and energy into, then it's not for you. And it's good to know that, right? So this is for people who are serious about what it means to mother themselves, what it means to take time for ourselves, and that gift and what that gift can bring to us. It was originally right after my fall retreat. It filled right up. But now some people, it turns out, are not able to come. So I do have a handful of openings. And if you're listening to this and you're willing to take that step, please reach out to me. We can do a discovery call, or you can put a deposit down. I would love that. And you can do that by going to my website, www.drgertrudelyons.com. Go to events, and there you go. It'll all be there. There's a beautiful page there for you to explore. I look forward to hearing from you and then seeing you on my spring retreat. And, we get to hit a lot of beautiful places with women on that journey. We also bring together women with all age children. They've decided to have children. And in this last mastermind, for example, I had a woman with a 3-month-old. She had a 3-month-old and 3.5-year-old. And then women who had, a daughter just about to go to college. And then, a woman with stepchildren, a woman with no children that was now, pretty much age-wise, if she was going to have natural childbirth or, conceived naturally, it was starting to look like that might not happen, and to grapple with that reality. So, and everything in between, we all have our experience, but when we share that experience, we find way more of the commonalities, way more of how we're alike than different. And I'm a big, big proponent of us not siloing ourselves, into categories of mothering, now I'm a mother with children. So that's my tribe, or, I'm a mother without children. And I don't get me wrong. I do think it's really important to have, time with groups of women who are just like you, but oftentimes, unfortunately, what happens with women is we get in those tribes, and in order to validate our decisions, our choices, and bring us some security, we start judging and, making judgments and having, all ranges of divisiveness around that, in order to validate our own choices. I know I had my points in doing that. And sometimes mine, I could come up with some, really high and mighty ones. Well, I'm doing it more consciously. And those women who aren't as thoughtful as me and, aren't going as deep as me, or, things like that I would, tell myself so I could feel a little bit better about myself and some of the choices I was making. And that's another key piece that I want to talk about that we have the opportunity to go into. We look at some very powerful ways that we can then explore these pain points. And we can look at when we're in stressful times, kind of sorry now that I've waited this long into the episode to talk about, the fact that, of course, mothering in all of its aspects is stressful, because whenever we put a ton of amount of ourselves and caring and attachment to something, and children are their own flavor of that, but it could be a business, it could be a relationship. And, obviously this past year, this is a place we can all unite, around our experience with the pandemic and the, anti-racism and the unrest that we're feeling. There's ways that this touches all of us in a way that we've never globally, had an experience of this, and it's showing the cracks, and it's big time showing the cracks in the US around how we don't value mothering because, if we look at who it's impacting the most, it's impacting women, and it's impacting women in the workforce, having lost the most jobs. And then it's impacting women of color and Hispanic women the most. So all of it is right there for us to see. And, this is an aspect of in our mothering and this whole level of stressful situations. How can we as women live in those stressful situations, not just to get through them, but to exploit them? And what I mean by that is to get as much of the meat that we can, or the impact that we can from that stress for ourselves. All right. So yes, we need to learn ways to deal with stress. But I don't want to just deal with it and manage it or stuff it down. And believe me, I've done my share of that this year with, soft addictions. I was very grateful for the work of Dr. Judith Wright around soft addictions to see all the ways I was numbing myself to the stress. But then, I also, in being able to, share the mastermind, I don't have to, but I found myself really living into some of the principles and some of the ways that we apply models of development, models of transformation that first raise our awareness, kind of where we're at, where our pain points are that I talked about, really get to some ahas, really talk about what's stressful for us in our life, at this time, or what we're afraid of. And then we look at something that's at one level very complex, but also just really beautiful, our two models of development. First is Dr. Judith Wright's Evolating model, and that's a model of transformation. And we really, get a really strong introduction to that because a key aspect of that for women starts with us yearning, so in this model of transformation, if we're not in touch with what we deeply yearn for and what we know can satisfy us as women, then forget it. We're kind of lost and we're going to feel like victims in our life. So we get a good, chance with that. But then, once we've explored that, we then use a tool of the right developmental model. And that's a map of consciousness. So again, it starts with raising awareness, understanding that as human beings, we're always growing. And we have this time in our life that's our formation and where we're wired. And as I've talked about before on Rewriting the Mother Code, we want to go back and look at that wiring because it's in us. Mostly it's in our unconscious. So we want to bring those to the surface. And stressful situations kind of highlight much of our unfinished business. So we can see where are we kind of stuck developmentally, because our development is happening all the time, and places where we missed certain aspects of our development along the way. If it's a child, for example, some of the stressful aspects of pregnancy and birth and early childhood, but then even throughout the raising of children, we're going to be triggered, and we can map them to places in our life, see what that trigger is, and then a number of ways that we can learn how to heal those pain points. So we don't just want to identify them. We want to learn how to heal them and provide ourselves, with a new paradigm for ourselves. And we call it rematrixing, right? We're going to find out ways that we've had these core mistaken beliefs about ourselves that run us, but now we have new beliefs. And now we get to practice what would living into a new belief about myself be. A very core mistaken belief for me was that I don't exist. I mean, that's pretty basic, right? I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about that, but there were ways in my family and the role I took on that it was better if I kind of faded in the background, was a peacekeeper, kept quiet. And my existence really came only in relationship to my mother. And I existed through her. And she lived her life through me, and it was a very enmeshed relationship. So to notice that and know that it's going to be very challenging for me to step out of that. But there are daily, weekly assignments that I can give myself and did give myself. And that's something that we then, work on in the mastermind is practicing. So I have this awareness. I now have to practice a new belief that I do exist. So now if we expand that just to give a broader picture, bring that to life, as I started talking about how I'm mothering my dissertation, sitting here at this microphone on a podcast, a woman whose core mistaken belief is that I don't exist. And here I am, putting my voice out, sharing myself, sharing what really matters to me, so deeply on my heart, so much that I want, for myself and other women to put a format like this together, to bring things that have made such a huge difference to me in my growth journey, through my training and teachings and ways that I've, learned that work really powerfully, in models and assignments that I've put together in this forum, that I've learned through the Right Foundation. And I'm so, so grateful to be able to look at it through this lens, because the very start of my journey, I went to an all women's college, and I don't think I understood fully why, I was making some of the choices I was making back then, but I do way more now see that I had a deep yearning, to really belong in the community of women, and then also to uplift and empower, myself and others. And as I started to get a taste of it, it really has been, something on my heart that I've yearned for deeply all along. And the fact that I am now able to do this, at this moment through this podcast, but then, when we can come together, I'm going to say live, the mastermind is all online. We're going to meet starting Sunday, March 7th. We're going to do Sunday afternoons from 4 to 6, kind of just a beautiful, if you think about Sunday as a Sabbath in a broad sense, but a day that I really give to myself, a day that I set aside some time just for me. And that's what was a big goal of one of the participants of the mastermind in the fall. She had realized that in the pandemic, she had adult stepchildren, I'm going to say newly remarried, but it's been about 5 years now. And someone who's had, just a huge, beautiful, powerful career trajectory as a CIO in a couple companies, and just a really kick-ass, beautiful woman. But she realized when we got together before my last mastermind and she saw what I was doing, she's like, I'm doing it. I know I need this. I've been giving so much in this pandemic to others, and I really have not been prioritizing myself. And I got to kind of get a reset. I need to get myself back in line on, what are my next steps? What's my journey? I've lost myself. And I think that's something that I think all the women who come have in common. There's some place that they're kind of realize I'm a little lost, or I'm a little off track, and they get to, and that's what she said at the end. Actually, she said it midway through. She's like, and she also wanted to enhance her relationship with her stepdaughter. She was able to achieve both of those. And she wrote a beautiful testimonial, sharing that, not only did she feel like she was back on track for herself, but the next level and the place that it took her in relationship to her stepdaughter was priceless. And they were now having conversations that she had avoided, maybe they both had avoided, that were taking their relation to very deep levels. Just to give one more example, that's one paradigm of woman, a woman who didn't do this last mastermind, but has done the intensives, and it's also someone I respect highly because she's done a lot of her own personal work. She had got to a very clear place, she and her husband, that they were not going to have children. And, it was always kind of a maybe, but then, they drew a line in the sand, and they were so excited, and they were a huge inspiration around what it can look like when you make that choice. And then we hit the pandemic. And now, and this is something that happens when we hit huge stress points, is we regress. And she started questioning that decision and thinking that, gosh, if I had, a child right now or a family, I would have she imagined, which is quite the opposite of what most families with children are experiencing of the stress. She was only seeing kind of through rose-colored glasses the positiveness. But really what we got to was she was avoiding herself, and she was avoiding, she hoped to open the door and have a child standing there needing her. What she realized when she really looked at it was she was hoping that child or someone was going to stand there and be a huge distraction for, the stress and the upset that she was feeling, just even in a day at her very, stressful job that she's, a partner in the firm that she's in. So, we get to tell the truth about some of these underlying feelings and discover them. And now we can make different choices. Now we can see things and really shine the light on how things really are. Just to name a couple other things, And isn't it so beautiful? It's just, I don't know. It's so beautiful to hear. I love sharing other women's stories, but I love being in the presence of them. And we make, we get close quick. The mastermind also includes a private coaching session with me. It includes a week where we really mother relationships and we get to know the other women in the mastermind. So there's 2 weeks where we don't meet as a group, but we meet individually in one way or another. I'm super excited because I also get to bring in, how this all relates to us as us and the divine feminine, and valuing the feminine and archetypes that we've seen across the millennium of what the divine feminine, and how we can see the divine feminine as both models for us to aspire to, but more so how those aspects are already in us and we just need to reawaken them. And we get to reawaken this divine feminine within us in a very grounded, really beautiful, powerful way. And then I love that we came up with, we want to, kind of bring to life, and we can't be in person. So I wanted everybody to have some things that would help them create an atmosphere of tending to themselves and mothering themselves. So you get I think we call it the magical mothering goddess box or something like that. But, it's a box that every woman who signs up receives and gets to have with them. And there's aspects that you kind of open and are with throughout the mastermind. And it's just a beautiful little gift that I get super excited about things like that. And I love sharing them. So that's another aspect. And, really it's building, I don't think we as women can have enough mini communities, larger communities where we're all in the same mindset of mothering ourselves and getting that as we mother ourselves, we mother those around us more powerfully, more strongly, and more in alignment with our values. And we can have more impact, and our world needs us having more impact. And if we don't start mothering ourselves, we just saw a huge regression in, women leaving the workforce, and that's detrimental. We have to come together as women and do everything we can, to support each other, to support ourselves, and, to really manifest and bringing the masculine and feminine in balance. We need a balance. We're desperately in need of a balance. So I hope you journeyed with me through this. I hope you could picture yourself. And as I shared stories of myself and other women, you could see yourself, and that, obviously I also have a hope that, this would inspire and move you toward the thought of doing this for you. I'm speaking to you, right now, as someone who I would love to have, because I can't imagine any listener here that can't and wouldn't benefit from our time together. So please come join us. Obviously, I'm going to have notes and all the ways that you can find out more about it, ways that you can reach out and talk to me if you want to find out more about it, or sign up, because we are starting March 7th. So I am also taking a couple scholarship applications. So I don't want anything to get in the way. I want women who are serving women and supporting other women to be empowered. So if you are one of those women, or a woman like that, please take a look. And I can't wait to, hear and be with you on this journey together. Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you love this episode, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe so that you can stay on the journey and continue to hear more about rewriting your mother code.